Hey, before we get going on today's interview episode, we want to talk to you guys about the beer sponsor of this show. You guys already know it's a great tasting, less filling Miller Lite. From family gatherings to holiday parties with friends, this season is for enjoying time with the most important people in your life. Make the holidays even better with Miller Lite, the great tasting light beer for people who love beer. It tastes like Miller time. The taste you can depend on. No games, no gimmicks. Just a great beer for people who like beer. Miller Lite is brewed for taste. It hits different than other light beers. Simple ingredients like malted barley for rich, balanced toffee note flavors and the iconic golden color. Chief, tomorrow is Thanksgiving.
Mm-hmm.
Just set that case on the deck like we talked about.
Oh, it's the best.
It's good stuff, Dave.
Earth temperature beer.
What's better than that?
Yeah.
Honestly, nothing. I don't think there is anything better than that.
Can't wait.
I would love to be able to train my dog to be like, hey, go out to the deck, give me a beer.
Yeah.
You could probably do that.
It's good stuff.
Maybe not with George.
Not with George.
He would know how. He would just ignore you.
Yeah.
So making memories at year-end gatherings tastes like Miller time. Go to MillerLite.com/midshow to find delivery options near you, or you could pick up some Miller Lite pretty much anywhere that they sell beer. Tastes like Miller time. Celebrate responsibly. Miller Brewing Company, Milwaukee, Wisconsin. 96 calories and 3.2 carbs per 12 ounces. Fewer calories and carbs than premium regular beer.
All right, we're back with recurring guest, one of our favorites, Coach Bo Pelini. Bo, thanks for joining us today.
Good to have it. Appreciate you guys having me.
Yeah, I still think that was one of my favorite days in the old office. It was where we did you came through, we did maybe like a 45-minute interview, and then you hung out for like 4 hours.
Yeah.
Yeah. We had a good time that day.
Yeah,
We did.
It was a good day. It was a good day.
Some of those stories aren't for the public consumption, but that was
And
Not-
it's a
not
shame
for-
because some of those stories
They
were
were
all
bangers.
timers.
They were bangers.
I haven't said them publicly, but I've said them privately like 100 times.
So what have you been up to, Coach? What's the latest?
I got some. I'm involved in some businesses here and there. I did last year. I did a little bit of consulting and didn't do any this year. And enjoying life, man. Playing a lot of golf, losing a lot of golf balls. Just enjoying myself. And like I said, I have some things that keep me busy business wise. And who knows? Like people always ask me, "You got to go back and coach?" It's like maybe, maybe not. If the right thing came, I'd look at it. If it doesn't, I'm good.
If the Bears hire Ben Johnson and he asks you to be defense coordinator, would you coach defense for the Bears?
The Bears, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. All right.
No hesitation.
We'll start working on that.
That'd be a good hire. I tell you what, that guy's a good coach.
Yeah. He's awesome.
Yeah, and unfortunately, he will not be coaching the Chicago Bears.
He's about to put up 50 on the Bears tomorrow on Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
So we're
It's crazy. When you really look at the Bears, they could have won. They should have won like four or 5 more games than they won. But
hey, Coach, we know.
Yeah. A lot of it, honestly, from our, armchair coach perspective is that they're losing on the margins because of the coaching. Is that something that you've seen? And what is it that you would have, like you as a coach, you that's been through the ringer through many different ranks of football, that you would have done differently? Not necessarily for the Bears, but just to kind of rally the troops in the locker room.
well, when you're losing close games, that's it's an epidemic. It's crazy that, and I obviously I don't follow the Bears. I don't know exactly what happened, but it's crazy to me when I watch football now these days. So much of these one-score games happen because of bad clock management, and I don't know whether that's the case in what the Bears have dealt with, but it's amazing to me that. I think analytics these days and sometimes gets in people's way and causes people games. But you have to be able to manage the last 4 or 5 minutes of the game. And I see a lot of, and I'm not specifically talking about the Bears. I'm just talking about football in general. The amount of times I see people losing games because they just don't play the situation the correct way. It's crazy to me.
Yeah. Coach, to move to college here, gone are the days, long gone, I should say, are the days of that fucking BCS computer, and now we're in an era where we're putting 12 teams in a bracket, first 2 out, every Tuesday night. What do you think of the new format so far? knowing that there's only one more to drop? And are you happy with it?
Personally, I'm not. I don't think it's I think there were um, shortcomings with the old system, but you're only looking in that system, you're only looking for first two, then four. When you're looking for 12, the it's like I don't think they're ever going to find the best 12 teams. And there's such a disparity in strength of schedule and who people are playing and what the strength of the conference is. Um, I don't think there's really a fair way out there. And I don't know. I think it's going to lead itself to, some people not playing. Like you get, unfortunately, in this, you get rewarded for playing a bad schedule.
Mm-hmm.
And you look at some of these poor SEC teams. That conference it's deep, and you go week to week, and they're beating each other up, and then now you got three lost teams that. I don't know what the answer is, but I know one thing, just from a bird's eye view, they're not going to have the best 12 teams in there. And to me, that's a shame because that's what they really want.
Is it easier to find the best 12 or the best 4?
I think the best four.
Okay.
I go back to, like, I look back in anytime you're going to have automatic bids and, this group, they have to be represented and this has to be represented. For after I left Nebraska, I was at Youngstown State and, the FCS whole thing. And I think they had 16 teams. And I used to just shake my head every year. There were teams in there. Like it was never the best 16 teams because of the automatic bids and things. And that's what they're finding with this. And they're just going to keep expanding because the money is what it is.
Right.
But I'm not a real big fan of the system. And just because I look at you look at people's schedule before the season starts, and you just shake your head. You sit there saying they don't play any. They have two games, but this team is only playing two teams that are worth anything, and this team's playing 6 or 7. Well, it's everyone talks about, wow, it's getting more closer to the NFL playoffs. Well, the NFL playoffs, you got to earn your way,
Yeah.
and that's not necessarily the case in college football right now.
I mean, and I love Notre Dame, but they have certainly benefited from that this year. So they
but they a little bit, yeah. But
Yeah.
you know what? Unfortunately, some of the teams that Notre Dame
Right.
hasn't. Notre Dame, one thing I can say about Notre Dame, at least over the last 5 or 6 years, they don't duck anybody. They'll play people. It's just
Thank you, Coach.
they have certain traditional games, and some of the teams they play aren't what they usually are, and it is what it is.
You can't
they're
control
gonna
that.
Yeah,
they're
that
gonna
and that's
Notre
Florida.
Dame's one of the best 12. Anybody who says Notre Dame's not one of the best 12, just from a football perspective, they belong in there.
Okay.
Hey, let's take another break to talk about ChevyDriveChicago.com. It's already the holiday season. Your local Chevy dealer has everything you want for your wish list, like maybe a new SUV, Chief?
Not me.
Not
I
you.
went through this process. I got the Blazer. Highly, highly recommend.
How about that Equinox EV?
It looks nice.
Looks nice.
very
Pull up.
nice.
Chevy's got that gift you want and need. You could find it all at your local dealer at ChevyDriveChicago.com. If you're not shopping for a new car and just need to make sure your car is safe and weather ready for the season, your local Chevy dealer service center is the place to go, White Sox Dave.
It sure is, Zed.
I don't want you being on the side of the road when you're driving up to your parents' house, okay?
Mm-hmm.
I don't want that. Mr. Williams doesn't deserve to get a call that his doofus son is a flat tire and he has to go help him.
Absolutely not. That's why I said it earlier. I'm using tomorrow as like a little errand day before the holidays, and I've already consulted ChevyDriveChicago.com, getting 2 new tires and an oil change, and I'll be good to go.
Boom. Always find your local dealer at ChevyDriveChicago.com, the official truck partner of the Chicago Bears. Who is, right now, Coach, unequivocally, it doesn't have to be 12, but give me like how many teams you could list that are part of the best 12?
Like, who do you teams that you think have a legit shot to win the whole thing?
I would say Georgia, Ohio State, Texas, Oregon, I think, is good, but I mean, really, they haven't played a real strong schedule. Um, who else that's going to get in that I think could win it?
Yeah, like maybe we'll do a thumbs up.
I think it's going to come out of those teams probably
Okay.
that I just talked about. Um, I don't think a lot of some of the, I don't want to mention any particular teams in particular, but there are a couple teams that are in there that are ranked high that I don't think they're very good football teams.
You don't want to say those teams because that was going to be my next questions on the flip side. Who do you think?
Who stinks?
Yeah, who is on that fringe that shouldn't be?
Well, I just think, I mean, you guys have been around, you guys have been watching it. You can see the teams that really haven't beaten anybody.
Yeah.
I mean,
Indiana's, yeah.
I mean, Indiana, once again, they haven't played a strong schedule, and
It's been a very
I think
bad
that
schedule.
coach is a really good coach, but I don't know how good a football team that is. I mean, I don't know if I don't think they belong in the top 5 or 6. Penn State.
Mm-hmm.
I think they're a little bit overrated. They really haven't beat anybody. But you also look at, I just look at some of these SEC teams. I think Tennessee's pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
A little up and down, but once again, they're playing week to week. Those teams in the SEC are just beating each other up. That conference it's deep and it's good and it's very talented.
Yeah, even a team like South Carolina, who I think they dropped a game on the road to Alabama by 2, and then maybe they had another loss in the SEC. But they have 3 losses. But when you watch them now in November, it's like that team looks like they should be in the discussion for this top 12. And
well, they have I don't know, like I haven't watched a lot of South Carolina, but I know one thing I've talked to some people that their D line is like ferocious, like as good as there is in the country. And as well as I do in football, it starts up front. And if you can, if you're fit, it's not, they're pretty good. I mean, they're a pretty good team. I don't know if they're in the upper. I don't know where they relate to. I mean, I think Ole Miss is pretty good. They've played a killer schedule. Alabama's played a monstrous schedule. I mean, what happens to Georgia if they lose another game? I mean, if they go into in the SEC championship, I mean, no one's going to tell me that even if Georgia lost again, that they're not one of the top 12 teams in the country. I mean, come on.
And that's like the discussion. Is the committee going to punish a team for playing an extra game, for qualifying for that game, and getting their 3rd loss?
That's another thing that I think is kind of crazy about it is if you're gonna go into playoffs, if you're gonna have a 12-team playoff where why are you having championship games?
That was going to be my next point.
I think they're trying to emulate March Madness. Well, eventually would like to emulate college basketball's March Madness to an extent where there are teams that are undeserving on paper. Obviously, like the 5th best Big Ten team will typically give Boise State a run often, So I think that's what they're trying to emulate a little bit, like down the road, and going for those sort of upsets with teams.
Football just doesn't.
I agree with that,
but I know that's why I disagree, and I'm on your guys' side. So I think
it's
they're trying
not
to
the
capture
same. Basketball and football, you can't.
Right.
It's just totally different animals.
I agree, and I think that's the road they're trying to kind of capture a little bit.
Would you prefer no conference championships but expand the field to 16? So get rid of this last championship week, rank the teams 1 through 16, the top 8 have that home game. Is that a better format in your eyes, or do you like the conference championship?
I've always enjoyed the conference championships because I think it means a lot because, let's face it, there's only one team that can win the national championship. And so, kids want to, I mean, from when I coached in the SEC, sometimes winning that was like winning a national championship.
For sure.
That was a huge deal. And I mean, it's a big deal to win a conference championship, but I just don't particularly like the with everybody opting out, the old bowl game thing wasn't is kind of lost its luster.
Yeah.
I always like people playing each other, having conference tie-ins, traditions, and then let people argue and pick the winner at the end of the year. Not necessarily have a national championship game, but kind of the old school way. But that would never come back this way. I mean, because there'd be too much. It's all about money now. We all know.
It's a chaos driven league. That's why they still have the conference championships, because something could throw a wrench in it, and the cash follows the chaos, right? So that's why.
I think the cash, like the individual conferences, want that last game because they get they get the Dr. Pepper Challenge money in the SEC championship.
But even so, there's just weird instances where teams who would never get in, but they're going to get in an automatic bid with their losses don't necessarily qualify, and it's going to throw a wrench in everything, and then that's more discussion. It all feeds the monster, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't know whether. What would be nice is if everybody had to, like, if you had to have more, like, if somebody couldn't play an out of conference schedule where they're playing, 3 MAC teams or whatever it may be, have people like where there isn't such a disparity in people's schedules, and I don't know what the answer to that is. Make everybody, whether it's the group of that group of 5, those don't play outside of it, play within that, or make people make the schedules a little more conducive to really determining who the best 12 teams are at the end of the year.
Yeah, it's almost like you need to make it more regional in these conferences. Everybody plays everybody in their own conference, and then you get the 12 best from that. You get maybe five or six conference champions. If they did this playoff format with the old conference alignment, I think it would have been perfect. It now it's like Oregon might win the Big Ten without playing. This year I know they played Ohio State, but they could, in theory, not really play anyone and win the conference.
How have you enjoyed that, Coach? The no realignment. We're really getting our first look at it.
I wish it would go back to being more regional. I think it's just crazy to me that somebody's that Oregon's in the same conference as
Rutgers.
Yeah. I mean, that's a 6-hour flight, 5.5-hour flight. It's crazy. It just doesn't. Just some of the things don't make any sense. But I think it's all heading in a direction, and I think what they ultimately want is they're going to have the haves and have-nots. You're going to have maybe whatever it is, 64 teams, and it's going to be a totally different deal. And
something like that.
I mean, it's got to head that way, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All right, let's take one more quick break and talk about Universal Beauty. Making the switch from a cartridge razor to a safety razor today with Vanderhagen. Safety razors allow you to get closer and a more comfortable shave. The use of one-blade razors help prevent nicks and cuts while making your skin feel smoother than ever. And the best part, these blades cost as little as $1 a piece and last anywhere from 3 to 5 shaves. And they will save you thousands of dollars over the years compared to the cost of cartridge razors. And Ed, these blades are ice-tempered. They're stainless steel, and they're from Germany, and they're sharp enough to give you the perfect shave. I use them. Everybody compliments me every single time I walk into the office now with how nice my beard's lined up. I feel like I need to line it up a little bit more today. That's why I got Vanderhagen. So if you are ready to step up your shaving game, get the smoothest, closest shave with our single blade and shave butter combo. Say goodbye to the nicks and irritation and hello to a shave that's almost too smooth to handle. And get a shave so smooth that it comes with a warning. Perfectly close, incredibly soft, and this is how real men shave, Ed. So check out your local Target or Walmart today to get your Vanderhagen safety razors. And if you're serious about your grooming game, hit the follow button at Vanderhagen, Vanderhagen, to stay in the loop with the latest shaving tips, product drops, and exclusive giveaways. Whether you're mastering the art of a close shave or just looking to keep it fresh, their Instagram is where the best in men's grooming comes to life. Join the community, level up your shave, and keep your styling sharp with Vanderhagen.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. They killed all the things that I love about college football.
Right, the pageant, yeah.
With these playoff games coming up, obviously you've coached in conference championship games, which would be the closest thing to one of these early round playoff games. Do you do anything different those weeks to prepare to get your guys ready, or is it just kind of business as usual?
No, I mean, you've already played 12 games, so
Yeah.
it's a lot of times you've played maybe sometimes you've played the team you're going to play again, sometimes you haven't. And, it comes up on a hurry, and it's kind of a war of attrition at that point. I mean, guys are beat up at that point of the year, and then you have that, and then what? Oh, another week, and then you're starting the playoffs again. I mean, I mean, it's hard on somebody. I mean, that's a big difference between playing a 13th game and going into the playoffs, or I've played 12, I get a bye, and then I get to go into the playoffs.
Yeah.
That's a different deal. Now, I think that if you win the conference championship, correct, you get a bye. So
Yep.
I guess that is, you kind of earn your week off there. So
Yeah.
I guess it all evens out a little bit. I think the biggest thing about college football is the whole transfer portal and NIL and people jumping around, uh, playing the three different schools and all the things that are going on there. And I don't think there's a fix to it now. I think they opened up the can, and it is what it is. But I think it's really, I think it's hurt the product. I don't think the teams are as good. I don't think they're as, you know, I don't think they're being coached. They can't be coached as our guys are jumping here and there. They're not developing the way they should. And I just think I don't think it's a good recipe. I think the NIL is one thing. I have nothing against kids getting paid, and I have no problem in some cases with kids earning the right to be a transfer. But when you combine those two things together, that's a tough environment.
Yeah, like you.
So
It's not a good environment.
no problem with our boss Dave Portnoy paying $10 million for a high school quarterback. Did you see that? He got the kid was
The
Underwood.
LSU kid.
Yeah, he was committed to LSU. Portnoy and Larry Ellison, who did Oracle, he's worth like $200 billion. They
One of the
were
richest guys in the planet.
yeah, I think he's like number 2 behind Elon.
Yeah.
They gave a
You
high
know,
school.
it's their money. They can.
I
do
know.
whatever
It's just it.
Right.
I saw that and I'm like, that is crazy. $10 million for.
They have to be able to put like
He's been playing games against like 15-year-olds, putting
Yeah.
up numbers. I'm sure he's great, but it's like $10 million for a kid that's never really done anything is bananas to me.
That's what I find to be crazy about it, because really like I said, I think if somebody is that passionate about it and they want to put their money up, that's fine. But you are completely, it's a roll of the dice.
Yeah.
I mean, whether that kid's going to pan out to be what they say he is or should be, or I mean, who's to say he's not going to leave after a year?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, whatever he could get, you don't know what's going to happen. He might get offended by a post that Dave makes on Barstool and say, I'm leaving. You
Yeah.
know? I mean, it's kind of, I mean, that's the reality of what we live in. And I don't know. I just don't think I don't think it's a good thing for the kids, and I don't think it's a good thing for the sport.
Yeah, and who knows if even they would probably agree with you to a degree, but that's the market. This is
the reality.
This is the reality of where we're at.
Yeah, if you want to get the kids, that's what you got to pay. I mean, that's just the way it works.
Yeah,
And
so no harm, no foul by them. Like,
No, I know.
It just
don't
is
hate
what
the
it
player, hate
is.
the game.
Yeah, exactly. And they're just doing what they have
I've
to
always said, like, I think back to like old recruiting, and I was like, you know, and this wasn't, it was obviously a different world, but I always used to tell kids, you know, hey, if you want to come. Like this is what we are, and this is what you're going to get if you come play here. You know, we're at the different places I was at, but my advice was always make the decision based on football, what's best for you for your long-term development as a player. And I said, and I used to tell kids, if you're making your decisions and where you're going to play for the wrong reasons, it usually isn't going to end up the right way.
Mm-hmm.
And if a kid is making his decisions just solely based on money, a lot of times that's not going to work out. I would say more times than not, that's not going to work out the right way.
Yeah. What would you have done if Will Compton came in after his sophomore year and was like, Coach,
I need a milli.
I need $1 million or I'm going to Iowa.
I said, don't let the door hit you in the ass. No, I love Will. I mean, you know, But that isn't what Will was.
No,
That's
right,
what
yeah.
that was, he was wired a different way. But he I mean, you want to talk about a guy that got every ounce out of his talent. I mean, he was a talented kid, but for him to play whatever 9, 8, 9, 10 years
Wasn't 10 years.
9 3/4.
Yeah.
We'll call it. Yeah, almost 10.
I mean, that in itself is a testament to who he is.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, because I mean, let's face it, he outlasted guys that were a lot more talented than he was, but Will knew how to play, and he knew how to play the game, and I give him a lot of credit.
All right, that's enough complimentary
Yeah.
content for
This is
today.
getting a little too.
I could tell you other stories where
Let's do those.
Yeah.
Coach, also obviously you're a lifer, like you've been around the game your whole life. When you see what Travis Hunter's doing at Colorado, are we not appreciating him enough?
Yes, I agree with that.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's absolutely. I mean, I really haven't studied him as a corner. I'm sure I think he's really good. As a wideout, he's a from what I've seen, he's got unbelievable ball skills and the way he can adjust to a ball and make those crazy catches and really get to some balls that a lot of wideouts can't. And I was just telling Patrick, you guys asked me about Patrick, or we were watching a couple weeks ago, and I said, in my opinion, that kid's a Heisman Trophy winner.
Yeah.
I mean, for what
guys
he's
hear
doing,
that?
the way he's playing at that kind of level on both sides of the ball, I mean, just his stamina is just off the charts. It's crazy.
It is preposterous. Now, there's a lot of talk that he will actually be primarily a corner in the NFL. Is that just a more valuable position now? Would you, if you could say, hey, you can have this kid and you're drafting him, would you put him on offense or defense?
Well,
let's say he's equally good at both.
Yeah, me, I'm a defensive guy. I play in the corner.
Okay, all right.
Because I think you have and this it's not a disparity against wideouts, but it is hard. It is hard to find lockdown corners and guys that you can put out there, and I mean, that's a valuable thing. And believe me, I mean, everyone wants a Justin Jefferson and these other guys they're phenomenal in their own right, but you better have some guys that can cover those guys or you're going to lose football games. And I think it's probably a little more conducive to him. Like if you're a full-time corner, I think maybe you could probably play him at some, a third down at wide out or whatever, maybe find some time to put him and use his skills as a wide receiver. I don't know if you could do it the other way. I don't think you can play wide out and just throw him in there.
Okay.
Right.
At corner. I don't think that's as realistic as the other way. Like I remember Dion, he played corner. Every now and then they would throw him out there at wide out, and probably in this day and age, they probably would have done it a lot more. I mean, he probably would have been the best wide out in the league too, but it was a different day and age then. It was a lot more physical, and it was just a different time.
Like what one question I have on this, you obviously recruited a bunch of freak athletes. A lot of them, I'm assuming, players that played at LSU, Nebraska, wherever, were players that played both ways in high school, just because they were head and shoulders the best athlete on the high school field, obviously. Did anybody try to pitch you on playing both ways when they were getting recruited by you? And what did that conversation go like? Was it like, dude, the amount of film work you're going to be doing on one side of the ball is going to blow your mind, and to double that is crazy? So no, is that how it typically goes?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, I would say, I'd be like, do you want to be great at something? And, in essence, not mediocre, but,
right.
Do you want to spread yourself too thin, or do you want to get really good at something? Because, when you start moving up levels, you're talking about, the intensity's ramped up, obviously the competition, the things that are required to become great at one position is hard enough. That's why I find it remarkable what Travis Hunter's doing is That's not, I mean, he's excelled on both sides of
Yeah.
the football. I mean, I can't imagine that is hard to do. Now, I have never really I don't know whether they just play him in man or like I'd be really interested to spend a week and watch him and like how much time does he spend in meetings? I mean, just the mental toll,
Right.
the mental load that he's got to take, that in itself is very
That's
difficult.
exactly why I asked. Yep.
And obviously he's a freak of nature, but seeing this being done, would it open your mind? Like say if you went and you got another head job and there was someone that could be capable of it to some capacity, would you be more open to it? After
Yeah. Is it
seeing
going to be a
this?
trend?
Yeah.
I look at guys like what was Travis Hunter was probably the number one. Now, I think Charles Woodson did that a little bit, right?
Mm-hmm.
Correct? I can't
think so.
remember.
A
but
little bit, a very little bit.
A little bit. But I think that you're just talking about I think people throw this term around too much, but somebody who's doing what he's doing, that's a generational talent. And I think it helps having Dion, who, has been through it. I'm sure, however they're managing it is they're doing a hell of a job. I mean, and I don't know whether they're just playing him in man on defense or how they're doing it and how it's being accomplished, but they've done a heck of a job of being able to use this kid and let him show all the talents that he has. It's been kind of fun to watch.
Let's take one more break because I want to talk about Ghost. Energize the holidays with Ghost. Perfect to get you through parties. Ghost Energy is fully transparent, fully loaded, feel-good energy with zero sugars, no artificial flavors, and 200 milligrams of natural caffeine. I got this beautiful cherry limeade here in my hands. It's one of these things, too, where you guys know you got your buddies who I was like, hey, you got any of this like laying around? Mm-hmm. I'm getting hit up about Ghost now.
You should be.
Yes, I'm getting hit up about Ghost now. Like people are tired of buying the other energy drinks.
Where can they find them?
Yeah, Ghost's the good stuff. Listen, there's multiple spots to find them, but they know I'm the Ghost plug now, which I'm happy to be because
You are.
I'm like showing people the light about how awesome Ghost is.
You're the plug, and you're also, I would say, the industry expert.
Yeah. So they got awesome flavors. They got Sour Patch Kids, Warhead, Swedish Fish, Welch's, and 15 more. So there's something for everyone, really. You could find Ghost Energy at your local grocery or convenience stores, or for the full lineup and flavors, visit drinkghost.com. And maybe I should get my friends to just go buy it from Ghost instead of trying to hit me
To
up
mooch
for
it.
freebie.
Yeah.
Moochers. But regardless, I'm happy to do it because Ghost is that good. But all right, let's get back into the show. Yeah, it's a bummer to me that they're most likely not going to get in if they're not mathematically eliminated yet.
Yeah.
Because he's just one of those guys, like an
wanna see
Ohtani, he's like a Trout. You'd like to see them on the big stage. So it's a bummer. I was
Yeah,
definitely
no
rooting
doubt.
for them.
I mean, I don't know that, their conference is, it's probably, not, not one of the top conferences right now, but even saying that should never, I mean, there are pros, I'm sure, playing throughout that whole conference,
Definitely.
guys that are playing the NFL, and you can't take anything away from what that kid's doing.
No, you can't.
Yeah, with the new landscape, the playoffs, the conferences, the NIL, I feel like that has changed certain programs. Is it, when you're looking at it now, is there a program where you're like, that is actually the best coaching position in America? Like if you could go anywhere to coach today, given the landscape, to set yourself up for success, is there a program that sticks out to you, be like, they're doing it right, they have all the advantages?
Well, I look at an Ohio State. I look at kind of almost at some of the teams I mentioned: Ohio State, Georgia. I mean, the resources they have at Oregon.
Yeah.
I mean, you're talking about places where not only are they good recruiting bases, Oregon not as much, but you look at Georgia, Ohio State. I mean, they're not recruiting; they're picking people.
Yeah.
And then you put on top of it the amount of financial resources they have and the way they've managed the NIL and the amount of NIL money that they're able to throw out there. I mean, I think it's heading more towards having the haves and the have-nots than any time in our lifetime, because there are the teams that don't have those kind of. It's hard enough not having a great recruiting base.
Mm-hmm.
So are you going to be willing to spend 2 times the amount of money
Mm-hmm.
to offset that? Or it's just it's really become a crazy landscape. I don't think that's even it's not possible.
Yeah,
People aren't going to be able to dole out that kind of money to offset the challenges that already exist in recruiting. And I don't know. It's gonna be an interesting to watch the next 4 or 5 years, especially if they don't change the rules at all.
yeah, I've heard both arguments made. Your argument, and then I feel like our boss, Big Cat, will often say like he thinks it makes it, at least maybe among that top 40 programs, like there's more parity because kids are like, oh, I didn't play as a freshman, so now I'm leaving Georgia and I'm going to Nebraska, or I'm leaving Georgia and I'm going to Vanderbilt, and then you all of a sudden Vanderbilt pops up and they're halfway decent and they upset Alabama. Do you buy into that as well? That maybe it's like, hey, it actually
Maybe in a certain case, but I also say, and this is just my personal belief. If somebody's leaving, they're leaving for a reason.
okay,
You're not leaving Georgia because they want you.
yeah,
You're
fair.
leaving Georgia because you weren't good enough to play there.
Yeah,
So there's a reason why that kid's leaving that program, and
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't mean you can't go somewhere else and beat them. I mean, in a one game, but I've always said, with transfers is, coaches have asked me like and said, what do you think about the transfer portal and this, that, and the other thing? And it's like, well, be careful what you're buying.
Yeah.
That kid entered the transfer portal for a reason.
Yeah.
Now, especially when you're talking about going from like this big program to that big program, there are a lot of hidden gems at the lower levels, and those are the people that are really getting poached. Some of those kids that maybe didn't get recruited out of high school that were better than what they got recruited to, and all of a sudden people see them in the train, they put themselves in the transfer portal, and they're like, that kid should be in the SEC. Now you can get some really good transfers, by going to that level.
Is there any storyline that you've been able to really follow and like gravitated to the most? Like, is it DeBoer's first season at Alabama, or like what what has really intrigued you the most here throughout the year?
I think that like the new SEC has been kind of interesting to watch. I mean, it seems like every week there are classic games, like there's a lot of good football teams in that league. I look at DeBoer. I mean, I think he's, I don't know him very well. I don't know him. But yeah, I mean, that's about as hard as environment you could possibly walk into, trying to follow Nick. And
Yeah.
that's a tough situation. And it's very interesting with Alabama's. They've been pretty good at home. They've struggled like heck on the road. And I don't know why that is, but it's been an interesting year, and but I think it kind of what I thought at the beginning of the year has kind of happened. It's like if you would have looked at who the 12 teams were going to be 3 weeks ago and look at the 12 teams that they're projecting now, it's completely different.
yeah,
And really for one reason, because people are not like some of these schools are playing tougher schedules and they're knocking each other off. So that 12-team playoff is getting, for the top teams is getting a lot more manageable, a little bit easier, I think. I think it's gonna play out that way.
Yeah. Well, we could probably end on this. You identified Oregon, Ohio State, Georgia, and Texas as your top four. Who's going to be holding the trophy in Atlanta?
Eddie's been. Every time he puts a bet down on a future, he gets smoked. They die instantly. So now he's outsourcing it to you to pick.
I have
someone.
I've identified someone in my head, but I'm interested to hear what you say.
You know what? I think you could take probably 6 teams and roll the dice and have as good a chance of picking the winner as anything else. I think a big part of this is going to be how the bracket plays itself out. And I think that's going to be, and then I think as far as getting to the championship game, it's going to be, who has the best draw. And And I don't, maybe that's the case in college basketball sometimes. But I don't know that all the time. But if you know, if you get a bad draw in this, and you could have a pretty hard go of it.
Yeah. I mean,
you get a good draw, then all of a sudden you find you're in the championship game. You got to really win one game.
well, and if it plays out the way it is right now, which obviously it'll change, but right now Ohio State, they're the 5 seed. They would play Arizona State in the first round at home. Then they would get Boise State neutral site in the quarterfinals. So it's like, you know, like that path is easier than anybody else's.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I think the draw is going to be very important for these teams, and you know, I mean, people can bitch all they want. Like once it comes out, people can say, "Oh, that ain't fair." Well, it is what it is. I mean, like let's say Ohio State ends up with that, or Texas, or whoever. It's not their fault.
Mm-hmm.
It's just that's the way it fell. And you know, I just think that. Yeah, I don't know if there's ever a time that's going to have. Like I always say that one thing about the NFL is everybody that got into the playoffs, they earned their way there, and it was. I'm not saying these teams aren't earning their way into the 12, but you know, you've got to play your schedules and divisions, and I know some divisions are stronger than others, but pretty much everybody kind of has to play similar schedules, and that's just not the case in college football. And I don't know what the answer is to that, because I don't think there's any quick fix to that. Yeah.
Well, Coach Bo, thanks so much for your time. Hope you have a great Thanksgiving. Is there anything you want to get out there before we wrap up, or?
Well, what about Big Cat? I want to hear about how he's doing now here in Chicago. You know, Mr. Big Time now. You know, back in Chicago. Is he running for mayor?
Yeah, we're gonna try to talk him into that.
Yeah, we could.
Next election cycle, though.
Yeah, there you go.
Portnoy ran for mayor.
Thanksgiving, and we'll catch you. We should catch up again once it'll be interesting when the last pairings come up.
For sure,
absolutely.
You know what? We do these live streams here where we watch all the games live, and we're on video during the games. You should come on out for one of those.
Yeah, that'd be
it'd
awesome.
be a lot of fun.
Yeah, we had Ron Rivera on for one. We hired John Gruden, so there could be some coaches here with you. You should come on out.
Yeah, open invite.
What do you mean you hired John Gruden?
John Gruden works for Barstool Sports now.
Yeah, he's one of us.
Yeah,
that's a beautiful thing. He belongs on Barstool Sports.
Head football guy.
He's the best.
He's one of the all-time greats in my opinion.
Yeah,
I love him.
Yeah, and I guess Portnoy talks about the negotiations where Dave just gave a number. He said yes immediately, and he said he just wants to give money and give back to football.
Yeah,
that's all he wants to give money to football, and he's working with Ed to do with like high school programs.
Yeah,
there you go.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Yeah,
yeah.
All right, I will. Let's try to make that actually happen for the playoffs or something. We'll get you to Chicago for a live stream.
That'd be fine. I'd really enjoy it. That'd be great.
Okay, great.
Awesome. Thanks, Coach. See ya.
All right,
Thanks,
gentlemen.
Coach. Have a good holiday season.
You too.